on this episode of America's Port.
Starboard 20.
A near miss of megaships at the entrance of the harbor.
You're slowing way down. We're looking at close in your stud.
And a search for a missing man in the marina.
Did something down there.
The Port of Los Angeles, the gateway linking the world to Main Street, USA. The bridge from factories in Asia to store shelves in America. The #1 container port in the country. Every year, almost half of all goods bound for U.S. stores from overseas enters aboard one of the nearly 3,000 ships that dock in the Port of Los Angeles and its neighbor, the Port of Long Beach.
Going on board a $200 million ship with a couple $100 million worth of cargo in it is probably the best job that I could ever dream of doing.
This cargo is on extremely tight deadlines to reach destinations from California to Maine.
Are we still on track? Is this empty plan? Do we need to raise a red flag yet?
Delays are measured in millions of dollars. The cost of moving it is often paid for in lives.
We've had our share of accidents. This last year, I think we had 6 fatalities. A lot of human error.
It's a hard job. You're not getting a paper cut down here.
Crane ops perched on rails 140 feet above deck are under constant pressure to quickly load shipping containers onto the 16,000 trucks and trains that snake through this dual port complex each day. 24/7, 365. The caravan of cargo never stops, and it may be in the crosshairs of terrorists.
What makes us vulnerable is the size of this facility.
We've got a big target on our back.
Nothing enters or leaves without being scanned, sniffed, or searched by Customs and Border Protection, the Coast Guard, or Port Police.
We're in boats. We're in the water. Go. We're under the water. The big picture goal here is Homeland Security.
Law enforcement here at the port, we have to be right 100% of the time. The terrorists just need to be right once.
The fear? One terrorist bomb. Or one hijacked ship slammed into port, and America's economy is brought to its knees at a cost of $1 billion a day.
In terms of security, we have to assume that something's going to happen at some time. We have to assume security, something's going to happen at some time.
The LA Port Complex. Here, man and machine help power the economic engine that drives America. It's mid-November, and the Christmas rush is on. Retailers anxiously await their shipment of goods, and the pressure here is really heating up.
It's just a little crowded, you know? Oh, we got 7 gangs working. One crane is considered a gang.
5 a.m., an hour to go before the shift change. And they're in a race to offload this ship, the Karsten Maersk, and get it sailing to make room for an arriving vessel that's carrying Christmas cargo for kids across the country.
I copy.
Speed is critical, but not at the expense of safety.
It just tends to be dangerous, you know? You never know when something's gonna go wrong.
When they bring me the cargo, I can move 35 to 40 cans per hour.
They have only one more hour to offload the remaining containers, or cans as they like to call them. As this ship is offloaded, other containers are loaded on, which will be carried back to China. The process of loading cargo containers onto a ship requires a combination of precise engineering, expert hand-eye coordination, and brute force. First, crane operators stack containers in rows across the ship. A clamp-like device called a cone holds them in place. Longshoremen then lash the containers together using steel rods, further protecting them from storms and swells that would otherwise topple them at sea. Once in port, the process works in reverse. Longshoremen unlash the rods and cones using a small hook on a long pole. As the cranes rumble overhead, lashers head out to get 33-ton cans ready for moving.
All right, Roosevelt, we're good to go.
10-4.
We got a bunch of guys over there.
Yeah, right? We can't do it. I'm saying, we can do it, but it's a bust.
This crew will unhook the thousands of cones securing the cans in place. The tools needed? A safety line, a 20-foot aluminum pole, and nerves of steel. Welcome to a lasher's office. When they come to work, they leave their fear of death at home. When they're not looking down at the dangers that lie below, they're looking over their shoulder to see if they're in the path of a 33-ton container that could crush them from overhead.
Our life's on the line every night. You don't necessarily know if you're going home every night. You know, you get hurt, it's over. You're lucky if it's an ambulance. You know, if you get hurt down here.
Nice and easy, nice and easy.
As the crew unlashes this final stack of containers, it looks like they're going to get this ship out of port in time.
Okay, the back reach is clear.
That's it for the night.
Loading is complete and ship cleared to sail.
They made their deadline. The vessel is on its way, and the dock is cleared for the arrival of the Svenborg Maersk, a ship that will keep this entire dock working for 2 days. The start of the day shift, and news comes that a storm at sea they've been tracking is worse than imagined. It will delay the arrival of the Svenborg by at least 8 hours. With nearly 4,000 containers on board, its delay will impact almost every phase of operation at the port.
What's the update on the plan?
Jeremy Ford, Senior Director of Operations, calls a meeting of department heads.
The Svenborg. They're slowing it down. We were looking at all kinds of scenarios.
From the time the vessel leaves Asia, in this case the Svenborg, she'll travel 13 days across the Pacific Ocean to reach Los Angeles. Unfortunately, due to some weather, that's not going to be the case. As that situation arrives, there's a great panic associated with it from a business perspective.
The panic is that the Svenborg Maersk must deliver this load of millions of dollars worth of Christmas presents and still have time to return to Hong Kong, pick up another load, and get back to the U.S. before the holiday. No one may be tracking its arrival more closely than port pilot Michael Rubino, the man who will bring this ship home into the harbor.
My role today will be the pilot aboard the Svenborg Maersk. That ship is one of the bigger ones that we bring into LA Harbor, 3.5 football fields long.
No registered vessel enters this port without a Los Angeles port pilot taking the helm. But an inbound ship can't put on the brakes and stop at sea to let him aboard. If it did, it would become 90,000 tons of dead weight, heaving and pitching uncontrollably. So, for the pilot to board, he must perform a potentially fatal maneuver. He must race up alongside a ship, grab hold of a slippery rope ladder, and scale 100 feet up the side while it's barreling into harbor.
I like to think of it as that the shipmaster, he knows his ship very well. That's his office. Our office is here inside the harbor, and together, the shipmaster and the pilot, working as a team, make sure we have a safe passage to the dock.
As a pilot, Rubino has captained nearly 7,000 ships, many as long as a skyscraper is tall. And this isn't the first time he's had to pilot a delayed ship on a tight turnaround.
People are scrambling down here right now, but it doesn't change the way the pilot is going to approach his job. And I have a great saying that says, you don't make up time between the sea buoy and the dock. If you haven't made it up in the 2,000 mile trip across the ocean, you're not going to make it up in the 5 or 6 mile transit from the sea buoy to the dock. The question is, if we speed up to try and make up some of that time, no, we don't.
What we did have last year was, due to a late vessel, a major issue for our customers where containers that were supposed to be here and arrive inland at certain distribution centers and be on the shelves, that wasn't possible based on when the ship arrived.
Delays affect everyone. Retailers could be left with millions of dollars of goods stranded on the docks, and the port could lose thousands and thousands of dollars as cranes, trucks, and workers sit idle, waiting for the massive cargo ship to come in.
That's all I got. Can't really do anything. All right. Other than that, have a great day.
A few miles up from the marina, in the shadows of the 27 terminals that pump out nearly $500 million worth of cargo each day, the most powerful person at the port makes morning rounds.
Oh, okay.
Dr. Geraldine Natz, a seemingly unlikely CEO for America's port.
We have operating revenues of $368 million, and we have about 760 employees.
Appointed executive director in 2006, she is the first woman at the helm of the port in its 100-year history. She spent 20 years in various port management positions, working her way up the ranks.
People don't realize that a lot of our cargo is just in time. It's like we have to keep feeding that engine. It has to keep coming in, coming in. It's relentless. We can never stop. We can never take a break.
Wife, mom, world traveler. She spends nearly half the year on the road, drumming up business for the port. She works 16-hour days, 6 days a week.
Okay, did I get everybody?
As a CEO, her mission is to grow the port and boost its bottom line. But this environmental engineer is also there to green the port.
I think it's important for a port like Los Angeles to be out in front and kind of leading the way. Sometimes my staff say to me, oh, do we always have to be the leader? Can't we follow sometime? And we laugh about it, and then I say no, and I kick him out of my office.
The Port of Los Angeles is more than just massive ships, cranes, and cargo containers. It's a city within a city of restaurants, museums, and stores. It has a movie studio, a prison, and marinas where hundreds of people live on boats. 7,500 acres, 43 miles of waterfront. It's an area about half the size of Manhattan, and it's protected by the Port Police, one of the few police departments in America dedicated exclusively to port activities.
We're going to go ahead and dive underneath the water line.
We're looking for any signs of any explosives.
Their cases range from hazardous cargo
there it is.
to homicides.
Fortunately, we did recover a victim today.
The Port Police are on a routine patrol when a call comes in. A Hollywood man who has a boat at a port marina has disappeared without a trace. Units from all around the harbor head to the dive team house for a meeting.
All right. Well, today's mission is a search for a missing person. We had a male adult, about 68 years old, who went missing. His wife claims that there's a .38 caliber handgun also missing.
Drop this down. This is a sonar. Basically, it sits off the bottom on this tripod. What it's going to do is it's going to take a picture 360 degrees. It's going to let us know what the bottom looks like, contours on the bottom. If there's anything down there of any concern, we refer to them as targets. And from that point, I'll identify those, and from the other boat deployed divers to confirm what those targets are.
Sergeant Ralph Edwards, a 10-year veteran, is lead diver on this mission.
The information we had from the report was that this was the last place he was seen. Therefore, we went ahead and decided that we should check this area to ensure that he wasn't here or that he didn't accidentally slip into the water.
All right, we'll work it out. Be standing by on 68 in case we need to use this for a working channel.
Roger, okay.
So I'm gonna get a range on this, zoom in, and see what we can come up with.
Basically, with the sonar operations, what we're looking for is some type of a silhouette or a casting shadow on the bottom.
Finally, after 30 minutes,
This is something here. I can guide Edwards into this area and he can search that a little bit better.
All right, let's do that.
Below the vessel.
Yep, that sounds good.
I'll be swimming east, about 21 to 25 feet that I'm diving. So I'm going to identify what two items that are there.
To any type of body search or body recovery, there's a lot of elements that are involved. There's human elements such as the person we're going to be finding is someone's family member. They're obviously, if we do find them, they've obviously deceased. Their body conditions usually deteriorated, so there's a lot of psychological for the officers that are involved in it. However, if you stay focused and just know that this will help the family members close that part of their chapter in their life, then you can pretty much work through it.
Afternoon again, sir. I'm now passing the Whiskey Boy. Roger that, ma'am.
at sea for 13 days, the Svenborg Maersk has finally arrived, 8 hours behind schedule. On board, millions of dollars of cargo stored inside 4,000 containers. The Marine Exchange clears the ship for entry.
Roger, checking out, thank you.
Captain Michael Rubino, a former merchant marine who has captained tankers all over the world, is on his way out to pilot the mammoth vessel into port.
Probably approaching close to my 7,000th transit of this harbor, and I still get a kick out of every single one of them. Every harbor is unique. The pilot has an intimate knowledge of everything that happens within the harbor. Not only where the ship is going, but other traffic they may be meeting, and also communication with other vessels. I always wear my hat when I go out to do a job. So when they see the Stetson coming aboard, they know it's Captain Rubino.
Svenborg Maersk. Svenborg Maersk, this is LA Pilot Boat, Channel 73.
Yes, we will provide a heaving line.
Thank you, sir. Pilot boarding speed about 8 knots.
A second port pilot riding on this boat will be shuttled out past the Svenborg Maersk to take command of a trailing China shipping vessel, also on approach to harbor. But first, Rubino must board this megaship, the most dangerous part of his job. The only thing separating him from death is a flimsy rope ladder.
Well, literally, every time a pilot goes on board or comes off a ship, he's putting his life in the hands of the boat crew.
So we want it to be as smooth as possible alongside. The ship is doing just about 10 knots right now, and we'll both be going exactly the same speeds.
All right. This is probably one of the most dangerous parts of the job.
Without a safety net, he has to climb onto this slippery ladder while this skyscraper-sized ship barrels along.
So we're going to go up about 10 stories on the ship.
Everything must be timed perfectly. If Captain Rubino loses his grip and falls, he could be crushed between the boats or sucked under this massive 90,000-ton freighter.
Hey, Marty, do you read me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Have him come to 6 to 8 knots. We can slow down a little bit.
Hey, Cody, have to slow down.
Whatever we do, we got to get it going. Want to catch it at the top of the swell. Pilot. Oh, finally, yeah. We can go when you're ready. Captain Rubino, welcome. How was your trip? Good, good.
Captain Rubino will now take control of this floating giant.
Slow ahead, Captain.
That carries everything from toys to flat-screen TVs to kids' bikes. Items on tight deadlines for Christmas.
We're on the bridge. I've taken the con, which means that I'm giving the engine and helm orders. Okay, Captain, dead slow 340. Thank you.
Bringing this megaship into port means navigating through a minefield of pleasure boats and freighters. A tugboat is attached to the stern by a heaving line. Captain Rubino must guide the Svenborg Maersk through Angel's Gate, a small opening in the breakwall, leaving only 300 feet of clearance on either side of the ship. Then he must maneuver the vessel around a sharp bend called the Knuckle, sail it down the finger, and parallel park this giant at its berth.
Zinyantai, LA Pilot Boat, Channel 73.
Just behind the Svenborg Maersk, the port pilot boat gets ready to drop off the pilot that will bring the China shipping vessel into harbor.
Shanghai.
Both huge freighters are now under the command of port pilots, but on approach to Angel's Gate, trouble aboard the Svenborg Maersk.
Whoa. Looks like there might be a problem in the engine room. Midship. Midship. I'm looking at the ship speed and we're only doing about 5 knots. And normally we should be doing 7 or 8 knots now.
One of the Svenborg's 2 engines is down. If Rubino can't increase the Svenborg speed, it could put it directly in the path of the trailing ship that is barreling into the harbor.
Starboard 20. Starboard 20. Looking back at the China shipping ship, he is 300 yards behind us.
The worst-case scenario, the ships collide at the narrow Angel's Gate opening, crash into the seawall, and close down the harbor, costing the national economy $1 billion a day. It would also have a negative impact on the trucking industry. Nearly 16,000 trucks rumble through the port complex each day, shuttling cargo containers to and from the ships.
My name's Adriana. I'm a UTR driver, and I've been working on the waterfront for about 7 years. On a day-to-day basis, there is like at least 2 ships going at least 5 days a week. So we're pumping almost 24 hours a day.
With trucks moving through this area 24/7, they bring something else to the port besides their cargo: deadly pollution, tens of thousands of tons of nitrogen oxide, and cancer-causing diesel particulates each year.
Well, the port of Los Angeles and Long Beach is the engine of the Southern California economy. It's the portal to the east and the south. It's also one of the dirtiest sources of contaminated air and carbon emissions anywhere in the region. Some 2,400 premature deaths as a result of the dirty air every year. The respiratory illnesses double the number of asthma rates.
One person who wants to put an end to it, Dr. Geraldine Natz.
Isn't this a fabulous view of the port? Unfortunately, you can see that brown layer, our inversion layer, pollution. So that's the plan. We got to eliminate that.
Dr. Natz is in a tough position. When she took over as executive director, she set an agenda to grow the port and improve the environment. The Los Angeles Board of Harbor Commissioners will not approve any expansion projects unless pollution is also reduced.
We're not going to be able to grow the port. We're never going to get the board to allow a terminal to expand unless we can clean up the operations. And we said we're going to do it. We got to do it.
The time has come to prove she can do both. Dr. Natz has proposed a dirty truck ban.
By January 1st, 2012, all the trucks that come in here have to meet the 2007 EPA standard for air emissions. Otherwise, the truck doesn't get in.
Many truckers argue that pulling old trucks off the streets or retrofitting old ones to meet new standards means pulling money out of their pockets. But Dr. Natz isn't backing down, and she has even staked her job on it.
If I can't get a project through this board, then I don't know what I'm doing here.
In just days, the Board of Harbor Commissioners will hold a hearing and vote on the ban.
My primary goal is to grow the port economically and green the port environmentally. And if I can't do that, I'm history.
At the marina, the Port Police Dive Team, an elite unit established nearly 20 years ago, searches for a man who's been missing from his Hollywood home for a week and a half.
Northeast. Just start swimming northeast. I'll let you know when I got you picked up.
Officer Dave Clements guides a diver towards targets picked up by sonar. 45 minutes into the search, and Sergeant Edwards has identified the first of the targets as a ladder.
All right, you should be at about the sailboat now. It should be just north of you. Okay, take another turn to your right.
2 hours into the search, and Sergeant Edwards has identified the second target. It's a dinghy.
Stand by, stand by.
When you're underwater, you're visualizing what the person's condition you're going to find them. The main thing is you try to block out all the elements such as cold water, unable to see, the unknown, and just trying to keep constant in your head. Don't look at the person's face. This is your job. You're here to help somebody.
Okay, good. If you turn immediately to your right, there's another object there. That's your last object. When should I ID that?
After nearly 5 hours, he IDs the final target.
One of the items on sonar identified for the bottoms of barrels.
All right, roger that. Go ahead and come to the surface.
Sergeant Edwards surfaces with nothing. He has exhausted the use of technology. They could call it quits, but he's not ready to go home yet. He wants to search one more area, and this time it'll be eyes only. For this dive, Sergeant Edwards will be joined by Officer Dave Clements.
We're going to swim that area underneath the dock, which is approximately 300 yards, back to the missing person's vessel to ensure that he didn't slip off when walking from his boat to the parking lot. The depth that we're going to be is not very deep. Basically, the visibility is about 1 foot.
Will this dive eliminate a family's worst nightmare and bring them hope that their loved one might still be alive? Crisis just outside the port of Los Angeles. A mammoth cargo ship, the Svenborg Maersk, is in distress. One of its 34,000 horsepower engines is down. It's dropping speed, and a trailing ship is quickly gaining on it. The two giants are on a collision course.
I'm looking at the ship speed, and we're only doing about 5 knots. And normally we should be doing 7 or 8 knots. Starboard 20. I'm looking in the radar, and I see that the ship behind me, Captain Manlamport, is still doing 9 or 10 knots, and he's coming close to my stern.
Captain Michael Rubino is remarkably calm under such intense pressure. He must come up with a plan, and fast, to avoid a tragedy.
Svenborg, this is Xinyan Tai. You're slowing way down, or we're coming up close in your stern.
The port pilot aboard the China shipping vessel radios Rubino.
We're reducing speed, trying to steer real clear of you.
But there's not enough braking room between the two vessels. They need 1,000 yards, and they're already less than 300 yards apart. And the Xinyan Tai is getting closer.
Svenborg, please advise.
Port 20. Steady.
Captain Rubino guns the one remaining engine, trying to squeeze every knot of speed from it.
Hard starboard.
With only half the power, He has to clear the entrance to the harbor and make a sharp turn around the knuckle of the dock.
Starboard 20. East to 10. Steady. Starboard 10. Steady.
He shifts the thrusters and the 1,100-foot cargo ship picks up just enough speed to pull it off, barely ahead of the China shipping vessel. In the clear, Captain Rubino radios the tugboat leader.
Leader, Svenborg, set you up center line when you get out this way.
Very good. Here we go.
A tense silence hangs over the marina. 1,000 boats are docked here, and all eyes are focused on this one, the boat owned by a missing Hollywood man. So far, after hours of searching by the Port Police dive team, there are no signs of him.
I see something. Yeah, I see it. We found him in the center.
I found him.
A chilling call from below. Sergeant Edwards and Officer Clemens have found a man's body.
As we came around the bend for our last, from the dock to his slip, basically about halfway there, was able to identify outline of a body with a hand extended outward. He was wedged up against the main dock and a finger slip.
They are trained to leave the body where it is to avoid disturbing what could be a crime scene.
With a dead body, things change, because now we have to start treating it as a crime scene and start to consider what happens. Everything comes to a stop. We step back and take a look at what we have now. It's going to be a joint investigation with the Los Angeles Port Police, LAPD, and the coroner.
Murder, suicide, or a tragic accident. The mystery can't be solved until they carry out one final dive and bring the body to the surface. Dr. Geraldine Natz prepares her final arguments to make a case for her landmark dirty truck ban. It's the older trucks that emit the highest amounts of carbon dioxide.
I mean, it concerns me that every day we all are breathing in the fumes and the gas, and you know, you come home at night and you can see it on you, the little particles of black.
This is a critical moment. Dr. Natz's first big hurdle in her plan to grow the port and reduce pollution at the same time. If it goes down to defeat, it could possibly take her career with it.
They're going to be coming at you, you know, and if you look like you don't know what you're talking about or you're guessing, they'll just come after you.
Her lengthy report already in the hands of the board for their review. Dr. Natz makes her final plea for approval.
I am very excited to be bringing to the board one of our most critical components of the San Pedro Bay Port's Clean Air Action Plan. We've put forward more aggressive timeframes and requirements for cleaning up the truck fleet. We need to do this, so we strongly recommend approval. Thank you.
Now it's the opposition's turn to be heard.
I am the owner of a small trucking company. Our concern is that in that particular situation,
and just like me and hundreds, thousands of drivers out there, we don't have the economics to pay for any new truck.
I'm sorry, I'm nervous.
Gary Satterless owns a fleet of trucks. He speaks for thousands of other truckers.
I've driven truck in the harbor for 10 years, starting in the early 70s, and I've owned a trucking company for about 21 years now. Speaking to the owner-operator model, if you upend this model, I'm ruined. That's all.
Well, thank you for coming in. We respect the sincerity of your views.
With the hearings concluded, it's time to vote. Does Dr. Natz have the support of the commissioners to pass her plan? Or will it go down to defeat, possibly taking her down with it? With the help of the tugboat leader, Captain Mike Rubino edges this mammoth freighter, the Svenborg Maersk, into dock.
Little angle forward, leader, push and easy.
Okay, down nice and easy, please.
Want to get the ship in a flat position, exactly parallel to the berth and land it flat along all these fenders. Leader easy, swing to a 90.
Easy to a 90. Woo, easy guys, easy.
Stop engine.
Being a veteran of nearly 7,000 trips into port prepared him for this one. Against enormous obstacles, Captain Rubino safely parks the 90,000-ton ship.
And that's about it for me, Captain.
Down on the dock, the pressure starts again for the longshoremen.
Ready to go to work, sir.
They have 48 hours to offload nearly 4,000 containers filled with Christmas presents destined for store shelves across America. They must offload this ship and get it sailing back to Asia in time for one more round trip before Christmas. Of county coroners, it's time for Port Police to bring up the body found at the bottom of the marina. Port Police Detective Mike Below supervises.
My job now, since we have a body in the water, is to determine if it's going to be a homicide, a suicide, or just a natural death.
After almost 10 days in the water, the body is in a very fragile state. Extreme care must be taken to move it. The danger, critical clues that could solve this case might be washed away.
Right now, what we're going to do is we'll go down, we'll video shoot a live feed so the coroner can see what is actually the condition, and then we'll recover the body after that.
Sergeant Edwards and Officer Clements will videotape the body in its exact position and then bring it up.
We'll go ahead and we'll recover the body by placing the body in a body bag that will hopefully keep all of the contents together, and then we'll bring it up and hand it off.
You guys that have the side of it, don't let go. Easy, nice and easy, slow, real slow. Okay? If anyone's losing it, stay down, just drop it down.
After nearly 2 hours, the body is out of the water, and investigators get their first look.
Okay, you guys just sit it down on you. Oh, absolutely.
Okay, they're going to be examining the body, so probably not a good time to be filming.
After examining the body with the coroner's office, we discovered that he has his wallet with him.
It's a positive ID. The info in the wallet confirms this is the missing Hollywood man.
There's no preliminary signs, including bullet hole stab wounds or anything else, so it's not appearing that it was a homicide, but we can't rule it out at this point. One thing that we were unable to recover is the gun. It's still missing. That's kind of a concern for us.
The man's body will now be transported to the coroner's office for an autopsy. Until that's completed, nothing can be ruled out.
At this time, it seems like an accidental death, but the coroner will make the final ruling on that. What concerns me the most right now is the gun is still missing.
At 8 p.m., one of 27 terminals in the Port of Los Angeles, longshoremen race to get the Svenborg's cargo unloaded. With 2,000 containers and 24 hours left to go, time is running out to get the cargo on the trains and trucks that will carry it to store shelves across the country in time for Christmas.
Okay, dock aloft, I'm gonna bring the lid to the dock and then I'm gonna bring it back to the ship, okay? I have to be aware of everybody that's around me down there on the ship, everybody on the dock. I have to try to also produce at a very high level, but I have to do it safely, and so it's a fine line we walk. It is a dangerous industry. I've seen guys die down here. I had friends die. That's the reality. Things are moving very fast, very heavy. You get complacent, something bad happens, and it happens real quick.
As each section of the ship is unloaded, containers that will be carried back to China are stacked back on board. In recent years, Rick has grown increasingly cynical of what he's loading.
We send them out, they can come back full, and we send them out empty. Because when you can manufacture a pair of tennis shoes in China for 50 cents or something, whatever it is, that's where business is going to go. This whole bay here where we're working now will all be empty containers. That's our best export here in the United States is air.
In addition to 7 crane operators on each shift, upwards of another 100 longshoremen, from foremen to traffic supervisors to lashers, are needed to offload and reload this ship. As mostly empty containers are loaded back on board, these massive steel lids form a deck, securing stacked rows of containers below and above.
This lid weighs about 30 tons.
As the hours pass, so does the hope of getting this cargo unloaded on time.
It's been a long day.
It's been a long night.
At the Port of Los Angeles, there are certain things you can always count on. One is that the gritty symphony of cargo pulsing through the docks almost never stops. And another, workers here never know what surprises each day will bring.
Who's driving, Cattell? Hey, who's driving Crane 8?
Sounds like we got issues.
Another setback in meeting the Svenberg's deadline.
It looks like the crane is broken down.
A cracked crane goes out of service and puts the ship further behind schedule.
That over there is one of the cracks that we are now facing on the structure. If this is left unattended, it could lead to a very big potential damage.
Taking care of this small problem immediately will prevent what recently happened at another port.
3-4 months back, there was some problem with the booming operation and the whole boom fell down quickly and it fell onto a ship. And the whole crane was a mangled piece of steel. So this crane will be idle. It will be out of service for 2 days.
Down from 7 cranes to 6, all eyes are on the crane operators to get the Svenberg out of port.
Okay, and how are we looking for, let's see, you'll finish J-Row today, right?
This is called the MRC, the Marine Resource Center. These cranes are our livelihood. The vessels come in here and they count on us to discharge and load their vessels at a certain production rate so we can keep them on schedule so that they can hit their other 8, 9, 10 ports that they're going to. So if there's a hitch on one of the ports, it affects the whole schedule and the whole world, really.
Are you good to go?
I'm good to go, and then we're going to put the TP7 in J-Row, right?
Oh, I think that's our only choice.
Okay.
Bye for now.
If the Svenborg leaves late, it could jeopardize the timely arrival of the next batch of Christmas merchandise destined for stores across America.
Bringing in all the toys from China. We're just right here in the eye of the storm.
As one storm heats up, another ends. At the Harbor Commissioner's office, the board has reached a decision on Dr. Geraldine Natz's Dirty Truck Ban initiative.
This one might be a whopper.
There are 5 commissioners. At least 3 must vote yes for the initiative to pass.
All those in favor? Aye. So that was unanimous.
The Dirty Truck Ban passes unanimously, 5 votes to 0.
I have to tell you, that was a big feeling of accomplishment.
With the board's vote of confidence that she can reduce pollution, Dr. Natz has earned her stripes as a power broker.
Oh, yes, we did it. We did it. Yes, yes. Well, you feel like, oh, we got that one done. So, you know, you feel good for 30 minutes, and then it's like, okay, now we got to work on the next part.
For Port Police, the case of the Hollywood man has been solved. The coroner ruled his death was an accident.
by us locating the missing person. I feel we kind of gave the family closure. Although it wasn't the answer that they were hoping for, it's still, they were now able to close that chapter and say that, you know, he's been located and he's now hopefully in a better place.
As night settles over the docks, Triumph,
wrapping it up.
the longshoremen have met the daunting challenge of getting the Svenberg Maersk unloaded on time. And items for Christmas are on the way across America.
Everybody safe, healthy, we're ready to get out of here.
The massive vessel sets sail, carrying more than just steel containers and cargo. It carries the spirit, courage, and passion of all those who dedicate their lives to making the Port of Los Angeles America's port.